There's another f***ing prick. I'll do it with you too, I'll f***ing kick that way.
They've passed what is a black box of Canada from a top dog approach. And when are they going to launch it? At the same time they would have or launch a fake, right? A pandemic.
This is the most underreported story, and the consequences, should this go through into law, are absolutely dire.
David Menzies for Rebel News here at Queen's Park in Toronto. And folks, this is where several dozen demonstrators have gathered to protest Bill C-293, that is officially known as the Pandemic Prevention and Preparedness Act. The only hitch is many freedom-minded critics say that this bill is not coming as advertised. Instead of being a Pandemic Preparedness Act, it really is about taking away our rights and freedoms. As always, the devil is in the details. And disturbingly, this bill has already gone through third reading. It is awaiting royal assent to be put into law. So why don't we talk to some of the people here, including the lawyer, Lisa Myron, who is leading the charge against Bill C-293, and find out what their concerns are.
It talks about a command economy. It talks about expropriation of your land. Yeah, changing land use policies is going to prevent a pandemic? Really? Or eating alternative proteins is going to prevent a pandemic? Really? This is a war on farmers. It's a war on GDP. It requires massive spending for health equity abroad. It requires massive spending to take people who are on the land and plant them someplace else in order to enable reforestation.
All of the things that we've been concerned about for the last 4 years or longer are all culminating in one bill. And so, for myself, I've been looking at the World Health Organization. I've been making a lot of noise and interviews and stuff about the international health regulations, the pandemic treaty. And so I was wondering for 2 years how the globalists and the WHO were actually going to install their One Health initiative in Canada and bypass national sovereignty. And I think this is what we figured out is 293 is the vehicle.
This talks about interlinking surveillance systems. This talks about owning the communication of risk. What does that mean? That means only they have brains? That means only they can talk about what the risk is and censor everybody else? And they get to control communication infrastructure to prevent a pandemic, electronic applications to prevent a pandemic, tools. Are we talking about the smart city? The overreach into everyday Canadian lives is paramount, but it also has a backdoor perpetual control of the WHO in one of the provisions that says any cooperative measure, what is that, David? They don't define it, with any government, foreign government, or NGO, or WHO, or UN gets implemented. So they've passed what is a black box of Canada from a top dog approach, right? And when are they going to launch it? At the same time they would have or launch a fake, right? A pandemic. So therefore your ability to claw back that jurisdiction is going to be hard.
When you actually look at the international health regulations, they passed those amendments with some adjustments, but a lot of what we're seeing in this bill is very similar, almost verbatim what you see in the IHR amendments. So, to that end, I think a lot of the things we see these days, there's always an altruistic, philanthropic kind of veneer to things, and the flip side is always a more nefarious kind of agenda. So, as you said, on its face, I don't have anything wrong with being prepared for a pandemic, and I'm like, well, how can we do a critical assessment and an actual post-mortem on the last pandemic? Because we haven't done that, except for the National Citizens Inquiry, and I encourage everyone to actually read that report. because when you read it, you'll see exactly what they did, and it's not good.
The way it's being advertised, if you will, by the government, it's for our protection. In that sense, it reminds me of another bill that makes me shudder, Bill C-63, the so-called Online Harms Act. Why does it seem that whenever the federal government uses the terminology, it's for our protection, it's really quite the opposite? It seems to be taking away freedoms and implementing tyranny.
Safety is the most overused word in the English language currently. It doesn't mean anything. I call it an antonym homonym, spelled the same but means the opposite thing. I don't think we want to defer any longer our rule to experts, right, who decide the world for us. It's time for everyday Canadians to take the floor.
You always have this altruistic benefit of the people face to everything, and then when why would they put hate speech in there? Why would they say that you can't assemble and protest against your government or another organization? Why do they have those provisions in there where this is simply an online harm act that's supposed to protect children online? So I think what I would encourage people to do is to always look past the face value of what these things are proposing, and that's where you really get into it. People can go and look up the Pan American Health Organization, and so what the IHR, the International Health recommendations, what they were proposing to do was actually install local IHR authorities in each member state. Wow. So basically, in discussions with lawyers and stuff many months ago, the bone of contention was always, how are they going to bypass national sovereignty, right? How are we going to do that? And the conclusion that we all arrived at was, based on those regulations, they weren't able to do that. In other words, our elected officials still have to implement their recommendations. Well, the problem now is that through the Pan American Health Organization, they have these, I think they're called NFPs. That's basically, NFP is just another word for IHR authority. And so through these NFPs, they basically say, hey, these are our recommendations. You can follow them if you want. But the problem is Public Health, Agency of Canada, Health Canada, these people are all getting their cues from the Pan American Health Organization, which is essentially the World Health Organization. So in a sense, if 293 goes past, it's goodbye for national sovereignty in Canada.
I bet you if we were to go to Yonge Dundas Square and do streeters, I'm pretty sure almost 100% of passersby would say they have no idea what it is. Given the impact of this bill, if it becomes law, I would argue this might be the most overlooked, underreported story of 2024.
It is, and when I saw that no one was leading the charge on this, I just felt I had to stand up. I just felt that I love Canada so much, and that's on the left, on the right, and everybody out there. This is an all hands on deck moment. We all have people that we don't want to have eating bugs in order to reduce a pandemic. And so this is a broader story than what's out there. But is it a treaty mechanism without a treaty? And is it a perpetual treaty with that provision, with the adding any cooperative measure with the WHO? And how is it that every MP missed that aspect of it and that it's not front and center? So I'd like a message to Pierre Poilievre. You have to take down this bill, right? And can you have a bill that as its function is to destroy the functions of the courts and the legislature and the executive branch and the protection of the Bill of Rights and Charter? Can you do that in one bill, or is it treason?
We're here today, not a massive turnout, but this is a grassroots effort. It's a spontaneous, 3-4 days ago, we decided that we were coming here because the Senate and Parliament is coming back today. That's why we're here. But I 100% agree with you. This is the most underreported story, and the consequences, should this go through into law, are absolutely dire. So I would encourage people to get schooled up on the bill. We've had tens of thousands of emails to senators. There's been a lot of uptake on this issue, so spread the word and get engaged.
Tell me, Lisa, where is it right now? I understand it's past third reading.
It's past third reading, and I'd like to say that the NTB focused on this little tiny aspect of the bill, which was whether or not there would be a COVID review committee. And you could take that out, put it back, take it out, put it back, and it would not affect the grant of perpetual power found in the bill. Remember, they get to do a plan at minimum every 3 years. They could do a plan every 2 weeks that ratchets Canadians off their land. Right, changes of a land use policy, owning communication structure. It's appalling.
What's going on behind the scenes? Why are the Justin Trudeau Liberals so gung-ho on this kind of, I would argue, undemocratic legislation?
Well, it doesn't accord with the protection of Canadians' rights and with the exposure of the 2005 International Health Regulations, NFPs or satellite offices. The WHO's already embedded in Canada in our public health, etc. I can't say I trust Justin Trudeau with Canada right now. I can't say I trust Jagmeet Singh with Canada right now. You know who I trust? Everyday people to think for themselves. For once, be allowed to do so. The morality in our institutions comes from the people.
My question is, what will increase well-being for the most people? And at the time, and to this day, I believe that well-being of people is decreased when we trust institutions such as the medical institution. Now, public health institutions seem to be, they're not as expert. They don't have as many doctors on board. They don't seem to have medical degrees. But the consensus of our experts is what will hold our liberal democracy secular and together.
Doesn't matter if you're in a public place or not. You got no right to anybody else's image.
You have no expectation of privacy in a public place.
You're all the same. There's another prick. I'll do it with you too. I'll kick that way.
Bro, are you kidding me?
No, stop. Can do it right now.
Okay.
Tell him to turn the camera. I'm on your side.
Media, I'd be careful. That's media. That's media.
Laughing at me, I'll fucking run right over you.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
No. We got
Go
you.
and fight, shine your fucking shoes.
Well, folks, as the protest against Bill C-293 continues, there is, I don't know, is it a one-man counter demonstration? He twice charged at Lincoln J. and I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he wants more medical tyranny, but he's very agitated. He's talking about his privacy. I tried to explain to the gentleman, air quotes, that there is no expectation of privacy in a public place like Queen's Park, quite literally the town square. And a couple of times he tried to kick the phone out of my hands and the camera out of Lincoln's hands. There are some demonstrators trying to talk him off the ledge, but I really wonder what his story is. Maybe we can practice a little bit of wildlife photography and cover from a distance. We don't want our expensive equipment damaged by somebody who is either, like I said, a counter demonstrator or just good old-fashioned unhinged. Hey folks, I know you love it when Rebel News tells you the other side of the story, but the fact is we need your help. Unlike the mainstream media, we don't receive a nickel from the Justin Trudeau Liberals, nor would we accept it if offered. Therefore, can you please go to rebelfieldreports.com. That's rebelfieldreports.com, and if you're able to, kindly make a donation.